Bob writes about it. Jim talks about it. But Chuck did something about it.
Foreman on a big hole across the 10.
He's something else.
He's out in touchdown land.
He's something else, baby.
Now, here's longtime columnist Bob Sansevier, Fox 9's Jim Rich, and the great number 44,
Double 4.
Chuck Foreman.
Welcome to the Jim Bob Sports Jamboree with Vikings legend Chuck Foreman. This show presented by 10K Construction. Minnesota is the land of 10K Construction. And Chuck, the Vikings are the land of the undefeated preseason. 2-0 so far.
That's a good place to be. I mean, considering the last couple of years have been kind of.
Oh, yeah, it's been horrible. It's been 10 straight losses.
I didn't want to say the word.
Well, it's okay because that's previous regimes as well. But they had lost 10 straight. They had not won a preseason game since 2019.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're sitting here 2-0. Granted, the wins don't mean anything in the standings, but what does it do for a team? What does it do for the organization if you have a successful preseason?
If you got a successful preseason, of course, you're going to have some good positive reinforcement going into the regular season. You're going to see, maybe the combinations that you have on offense and defense are working or can work. And just the whole attitude, winning a game is good for the team. Yeah,
you look at what they have done. Of course, the Detroit Lions, when they had the winless season, they were perfect in the preseason. So, there are occasions where it doesn't carry over.
Yeah, that's true. But, it's always better to win than to lose, regardless of whether it's in the preseason or regular season. And I just think that it sets a good precedent for what you need to do.
Yeah, and Kevin O'Connell even talked about that after the game, that he wants that winning feeling around here. He put a lot into that game to get the team over the hump, and now they've won 2 straight, taking care of Cleveland last week. Now they go to Philadelphia. Jaron Hall is your starter. But Nick Mullens is now your number 1 backup again.
Right.
What does Mullens have to do in that position to provide stability for this team if something happens to Sam Darnold?
Limit turnovers. You can't turn the ball over. And when you do that, you're fighting an uphill battle at that point. And if he could limit that, because he does have some talent, throwing talent and things like that. He's been around a while. So if he can do that, and hopefully we don't need to have him, but I'm not hopefully. I mean, but we want to have our starter in there as long as we can.
Well, yeah, because last year Mullens had the opportunity to get this team and to make him a playoff team, but he had more interceptions than he had touchdown passes. And he threw for a lot of yards, but he also made mistakes.
Right. Well, that's, mistakes can't mistakes can't be tolerated if you want to be a winning franchise. Even when I played, there was you knew that if you were a guy that made mistakes and made bad decisions, you weren't going to play for Bud Grant. In fact, you wouldn't even be on the team. So, that's very prevalent when they start choosing, the people they're going to keep on the team. They want smart guys, they want aggressive guys, and they want to have guys that have a controlled attitude. That means, be positive and do all things you need to do, but be in control.
Well, and you look at what the Vikings did last season, if we can rewind and start tearing it apart. Now we can look at that season. It was turnovers in the first half of the year that derailed that season because they were making fumbles and interceptions and, just giving the ball away 3-4 times a game. And that's what put them behind the 8 ball last season.
You can't win like that in any, in any game. And when you have turnovers, and especially in a football game, in critical situations, you're setting yourself up for a definite loss.
Well, you look at the way they had approached the season, because O'Connell has changed things in training camp from what I've seen compared to his first 2 seasons. And Mike Morris always talks about this. You always talk about this, is that you have to really practice in game conditions to get ready for the regular season. This not playing starters at all during the preseason. I know Mike can't stand it. He thinks that that's not the way to get into a rhythm for the regular season. You know, what do you think about that?
Well, I think the starters do have to play some in the preseason, no question about it. Now, I can understand the terminology of not playing them, but generally, if you got a team full of professionals, not just pros, guys that know what they need to do and are prepared, and when they come to camp, they're ready physically, mentally, and all that. And that generally comes with an experienced team.
Right.
And if you got
Like
I had, if you got an experienced team, then you're able to do that. But generally, when you have an inexperienced team, and especially when you got a young quarterback that's feeling his way, that really hasn't caught on to the professional game yet, how fast it is, and everything else that comes with it, you could be in trouble.
Right, because you look at how O'Connell has changed it this year. Darnold played in the first preseason game. That's a difference. J.J. McCarthy was in there a ton. He had 30 snaps before, that first game before going down. So I think he's realizing that he needs to get these guys better prepared in the preseason and training camp for what they're going to experience week 1.
I agree with you 100% on that. There's nothing better than reps. You can only get those reps, especially game-type reps, regardless of how few they may be. You got to get the guys in there and get them that experience and get them, regular season ready. Put it like that.
Yeah, so you look at the quarterback position, and now we know this is Sam Darnold's team. You saw Bo Nix; he got named Denver's starting quarterback. I'm sure more in this rookie class are going to be starters this year. Obviously, the Bears quarterback, he's been phenomenal.
Right.
And, there was always in the back of everybody's mind that, well, J.J. McCarthy's right here. We're thinking about putting him in, and the fans were going to be really pushing for the Vikings to do that had Darnold not been perfect. But you got a thought, I'll let you go.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say. Bo Nix in Washington, those teams had players in place around them. So that when they came in, or they have come in, they were able to showcase their skill set. Because they had offensive lines that were pretty good.
Right.
They got the skill positions that were pretty good. So they were able to, Bo Nix especially, plus he's an experienced guy. He got, I don't know how many games he played in college, but he's 25.
Correct.
So he's got some experience, more experience than most guys have. Even when he came out, there was questions about him and whether he can, play at the next level. Even though he played some good football at Auburn, he excelled when he got to Oregon. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying, that makes a good point. And McCarthy's just 22 years.
And, you bring these guys in here, and I'm a firm believer that when you get a young guy in there, especially when he's coming to a team that doesn't have a lot of experience, I don't think it's not good for him. I think it'll set him back more than help him.
Yeah, you look at how this is going to play out for everybody here.
Right.
And Darnold is now the guy. This is his team.
Right.
How does he get his message across to the wide receivers, to the running back, to the offensive line? How does he get command of that huddle where they respect him and, there's no doubting of the other players on offense that he can do the job?
Well, the confidence level he's going to have going into the huddle, the plays that he calls in the huddle, can he execute them? And if he executes, especially in the passing game, You know, he get the ball where he needs to get it. The guys catch the ball. You know, you have that good flow offensively. You know, they're going to respect that. When he makes the call, he's got to make the play. Let's put it like that. So that's how that's going to go.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how Darnold, because we've never really seen him with a group like this, a team that's expected to compete, expected to win. I mean, when he was with the Jets in Carolina, it was like, well, if he does something, it's a bonus, right? Because his team doesn't have any history of success. They don't have any expectations for this season. This Viking team, I mean, they wouldn't spend $10 million on Gilmore if they didn't have expectations of being a competitive team.
I think they have every reason to think they're going to be competitive. I think, like I've said before, Sam Darnold, he may be a diamond in the rough because the teams that he's been with had nothing around him. He got drafted by the Jets, nothing. He went to Carolina, nothing. He goes to San Francisco, of course. They've got Purdy out there, but I think coming here with O'Connell and his reputation of how well he coaches quarterbacks, I think this might be his time. And we'll see early.
Yes.
And when we see early how he's going to react to the opportunity, and then we can be a little more optimistic.
Right, because the big thing there is what happens if he does not succeed. Then we're right back to the musical quarterbacks we had last year, and Josh Dobbs will get a call, and the Vikings will have to trade for him from San Francisco to get him back. He looked pretty good the last week.
He's a good quarterback. People just always seem to me from when I've been watching him, trying to make him what he's not. Build an offense around the good things that he does, and you'll have a good quarterback.
Well, and that's one thing that I did not see O'Connell do last year. It seemed like trying to make him Kirk Cousins 2.0 instead of letting him do what he did in those first two games when he won. It just was,
Yeah, it wasn't that good after that, that's for sure.
No. All right, we're going to take a break. Much more to come here on the Jim Bob Sports Jamboree. This show presented by 10K Construction. And they are out right now in full force providing free storm damage assessments. Jake and the guys want you to go with someone people that live here. Don't just trust a door knocker when you go. You can go with a local trusted company like 10K Construction. We work directly with your insurance companies, and they take the hassle out of dealing with insurance claims. So check us out at 10K Construction, or give them the call at 763-200-6064. That's 763-200-6064. 10K Construction, they'll get you through the toughest of times. We'll take a break. The Jim Bob Sports Jamboree will continue after this timeout.
On behalf of Vikings legend Chuck Foreman and Fox 9's Jim Rich, I'm Bob Sansevier, and I want to say thank you to all of our listeners and our radio partners, KXRA in Alexandria, KRWC in Buffalo, KDHL in Faribault and Owatonna, KDAL and WDSM in Duluth, WNMT in Hibbing, KTOE in Mankato, AM 660 The Bear, WBHR in St. Cloud, and Wild 102 FM in Roseau. Also, KWOA AM FM in Worthington, and KKBJ in Bemidji, and Bob Total Country, serving the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and surrounding areas. We'll talk to you later.